open the door with a flashlight, and the first thing you see is the ugliest piece in the whole kiln, right? And then you go back to bed, and you all night long you think, the whole thing's screwed. I mean, I'm done. I had a show. I'm done. That's it. Elaine's go, you shut up and go to sleep. Shut up. And then sure as hell. Of course, that first piece in the depot is bad. And the rest is gorgeous. Maybe. Have you ever got out a perfect kiln? Have you ever got a kiln that everything was perfect? No. Something's always wrong. Now I finally learned to accept the bad pieces and the good ones and worship the good ones. And when you get a piece out that you just can't, it's so beautiful, you just say, I'll never get this again. You probably won't. And so you keep that piece. And then people ask me, how do you price things? When you get that piece is high price. Even though it's the same shade as all the other ones, that's high price. It means a lot more. So, pricing your work has always been a question that students they struggle with it. And I don't blame them. So what do? You look in a magazine and think that guy's work is equal to yours, so I'm going to price it the same. I don't know. I always did it because I went into a gallery and I saw something that was of really good quality and I thought my quality was getting close to it, so I could bring my price to that. My wife, on the other hand, has always been high. She started off, charging $500, $600, $700 for pieces in the 70s. And I said, you'll never sell any of this. You'll never sell anything. Wrong. We lived off that. Okay, so I'm gonna pour a big portion of red over here. So this becomes very, very rhythmic, like it's starting to go in this sort of motion now, just from pouring. And I'm going to have to go against that. But with the big plate in there, I did a whole series. You notice that has kookaburra birds on it from Australia, and you kind of don't even notice them. And those graffiti planners are the most satisfying thing I've done in a long time. I've done some with all sorts of figures and words, any kind of word that comes to mind. And, okay, so that's getting it. So you've got this roundness that's all the way through the piece so far. And that's something you want. So now I'm going to pour one more area with that purple, and then that'll be it for the glaze version. Leave some of this, the gray, not all of this, cover a lot of that. I've got other things that I'm going to, non-overglaze is basically a glaze with a high amount of color and a lot of feldspar. So it's almost all feldspar and a little bit of ball clay to hold it together.
When you're doing this in your studio, do you have to be concerned about contaminating other glazes with these kind of pours? Like,
No.
would you?
No, I always pour the same. You mean from pouring over those?
Because you have 3 glazes on there and you pour it back into the same bucket.
No, the only ones I'm concerned about are main celadons. If I mess those up, I'm completely done. I just do 2 things for the crack and the firing and the oil over it. She didn't say a word, did she, Amy?
No.
No.
Right.
She was happy with Amy took it. Let's see, oh, the purple. Shorts are getting too big. That's the last thing I'm about. You want this down? I want the purple. Yeah. Boy. I appreciate the help. That embarrasses me. No, I mean, no, it's not. I've never had anyone.
I've been looking at the guns. I see you work out.
You seen the gun I have?
No, the guns.
I brought my gun with me too. It's so huge. I believe in guns. Send us okay. I'm going to pour that purple up in this red a little bit. And I'll start this from a little closer in. stuff will blister up. And when I did that, this workshop at Long Beach, I poured this stuff so thick it just lifted up like this high. And I thought it was just going to be so I said the one that guesses, what was it I said? I forgot what I said. Someone that guesses something in the kiln, or how many pots were in the kiln.
Yeah, how many pots?
Got this platter. I didn't know what it was going to do. It turned out better than any I've ever done. This guy got,
Oh.
that's good. I'm going to put that and serve some meat off of it.
I'm gonna put a big turkey
That's
on
great.
it.
I'm going to glue a big turquoise rock in the middle of it.
That was one of them. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to spray. I'm going to spray some overglazes into this. So I have to go shake these up, and I'll clean that sprayer off. I squirt the overglazes on, and I'll spray them. If you look at
Good, go for it.
the overglaze will go really textured. It'll kind of fade into these little sharp, almost like fire. So let me go get one. First one will be red.
Really cool. I'm gonna go look at it.
I was about to ask, is it a chemical or?
So Amy, what did you mean by overglaze?
So the overglazes are, they're a glaze that's made a little bit more stiff and it doesn't melt as much. It's still glossy, but it doesn't settle down. It actually keeps its shape on top of the other glazes as an overglaze.
Something you guys are making.
It's something that Tom came up with years ago, and Aardvark sells it. They have the rights to that. And I think it's called Coleman Decorating Colors, and it's in little bottles.